A brand new Telecaster replacement neck that I ordered from China. It cost me $25 plus $10 shipping. And I purchased it knowing that it would have some problems, and that's fine because I want to use it as a trainer neck to learn how to appropriately level and radius frets, and ultimately, after playing around with it for a while, how to remove the frets and replace them. So if you take a look at this neck, it's kind of nice looking actually. It's a decent piece of maple, you know, it seems like it's pretty reasonable. But it has serious problems associated with it. When it came, it had a very strong back bow because the adjustment up here, which allows you to change the angle of the neck, was cranked way down, and so it had a tremendous back bow, which is a condition you never want to leave a neck in. Okay. Anyway, I've loosened it as far as it'll go. It won't go any further. And here's what I end up with. You take this straight edge, it can tell you if the neck is flat or not. And when you put it on this side of the neck, it actually rocks. Yeah, I don't know if you can see that, but you should be able to hear that. I think you can probably see that. Okay, it's rocking because the guitar neck is bent this way on this side. Now, when you move this to the other side, it doesn't rock at all, so that's good, huh? Eh, not quite. So it turns out if you take a feeler gauge, here's a 9/1000 feeler gauge. Okay, so that's 9/1000 of an inch thick. You can actually squeeze that underneath on this side. So in fact, this side of the neck has a considerable positive bow like this. Okay, and that's a problem. I mean, that in and of itself is not a problem, but the fact that it's different from this side, and this side being a negative bow, is an extremely serious problem. What this means is the neck is twisted. Okay, somehow in the construction process, this neck has become twisted. Okay, and now to be able to really fix it, I'm going to have to come up with a way to untwist it. But let's go on. Let's go on with the problems. Some of these frets are so poorly installed that on the ends you can literally stick pieces of paper underneath the fret between the fretboard and here's another good one, between the fretboard and the frets, because the frets are popped up quite a bit from the board. And it's not going to be easy to put them back in. I tried a little hammer action, but it's going to take glue melting to make that happen. So that's bad. Okay, the frets themselves are really very rough. If you take this smooth tool, it should slide across these frets with no hesitation. But in fact, what you get is it hangs up as you go across because the frets are not smooth at all. Then the frets actually are wider than the fretboard. You can't even pick up, some of them stick out far enough that if you had better fingernails than me, you could easily pick up the neck by the overhang of the fret hanging over the neck. Okay, so not only are they sheared off just with some crimpers and left totally rough, enough to cut paper. As a matter of fact, this piece of paper I sawed using this as a saw edge, but they're totally unfiled, so you couldn't possibly play the guitar this way, the way it is. Now this tool is a fret rocker. Okay, if you haven't seen these are designed to determine the coplanarity of your frets, in other words, how level they are. And it's starting up here on the neck, and what happens is if you put this over 3 frets, never more or less than 3 frets, and you see if you can rock it. And it's not rocking here, so these are actually pretty good. But when you get further down the neck towards the twisting part, and you have to use a different length to stay only on 3 frets, okay, you see that it rocks substantially. Okay, and the rock varies, hardly any here, a lot here, a whole lot here. Okay, and that means these frets are not anywhere near coplanar. In other words, they're not leveled out. Okay, so this neck has serious problems, and you know, it's a challenge for me to try to fix them. Step number 1 would be to try to fix the twist of the neck. That's the hardest one. And then after, if I can fix that, then I will, attempt to take on the original plan that I had intended, and that's to level the frets, get them nicely beveled on the edges. In other words, make this a playable neck. My motion-activated light is going out. Anyway, so this is why you cannot buy a $25 replacement neck. Also, one other thing, this ruler is not the best, but I think it shows the point. If you put the nut in, that's the little plastic nut it came with, and you measure from the nut to the middle of the 12th fret, it should, well, let's see what we get. I won't even guess. So, a bit crowded over here, but if you actually get it to an angle where you can measure it, you get about 1/8 too short. So it should be 12 3/4 inches, and it's a solid 1/8 inch too short between the nut and the middle of the 12th fret. Okay, that means that, in fact, this may not intonate in your Telecaster, depending upon how much travel you have left in your bridge. In other words, the frets are not at the right distance apart. So, looks pretty. Okay, nice piece of wood, but flawed in just about every way it can be flawed. All right, now I'll make another video if I can get it fixed. All right.